Gukesh opens the game with f4. He plays b6. Gukesh plays b3. Really beautiful move, knight at 6. Knight comes out to f3 and Magnus plays g6. Gukesh trades off the bishop, queen takes, but Gukesh plays g3. He wants to trade off the other bishops as well. Now pawn to c5 and Gukesh pushes his pawn. The knight comes to c7, brings his knight out. Knights and Magnus pushes the pawn to f6. Now the knight comes back to f7. Pushes forward f5. Break with d6. So Gukesh brings his queen to e2. But now Magnus strikes in the center and you can see how e5 taken here by Magnus. He takes back, Magnus takes back, knight takes e5 and he takes the knight, queen takes, and there's a small pin here. So Gukesh can go knight d3, but instead he castles here, making use of the pin. He goes d5, d4 by Gukesh. What a classy move. If you take with the pawn, I have knight d3 followed by e5, but instead he takes with the queen. E takes f5, g takes f5, rook comes to the center, the queen moves back, and now Gukesh, knight to h3 is that for one pawn, c4. I love this move because now he's trying to trade off the bishop as well. Long castle has been done and Gukesh brings his knight to the center of the board. Rook comes to e8, attacking the queen. Queen to d3, but first the bishops are traded. Knight takes on a8, and now he chops off the pawn. Queen comes to d7, blocking the check. But instead he takes. He takes with the rook. Knight jumps into d5, threatening a fork here. He brings his rook into the center. They trade rooks. And now Magnus brings his knight here. If you trade the knights, this should most likely end in a draw. Rook e5 played. Gukesh fighting here for the full point. He wants to win here. Knight goes to e8. Knight to d5, attacking the rook. Ooh, he brings his knight back. Rook f7. Knight, king goes to d8. Comes to the center of the board, king moves up, and now rook f6 would be very decent move. The position is equal, but instead he pins the knight here. But b5, what a nice move here. King f1, he takes, pawn takes. Now the c4 pawn can be. Gukesh plays his king to e1. Knight d6, hitting here. Maybe knight f4 brings his rook check. King f5, and now knight comes to d5. This is a mistake because now rook b7 entering here with the rook is very powerful. Magnus finds it. What a nice move here. Now c4 is hanging, and he jumps in. Knight to e4, and he can king e5. And now there's just no way to stop this d4. He's attacking the c4 pawn. And Gukesh resigns. Magnus Carlsen wins the game. Very intense game there. Gukesh fighting with all his might. He wanted to beat Magnus, but of course when it comes to the end game, it's very difficult to outwit Magnus. He's the GOAT of endgame. And with this win, Gukesh just barely made it to the top 8 position. So he has qualified to the knockouts. But Magnus Carlsen manages to get the first win against the world champion. We'll see if they cross their swords against each other in the quarterfinals, semi-finals or the finals. But for now, I hope you enjoyed the game of the first ever freestyle chess battle between Magnus Carlsen and Gukesh in 2025.